We do not see the emergent nature of the body, the connections that are all made, the systems that the body is all put together from. And because we don't see that, and because we suffer from low PQ, when the doctor says, you're going to have that gallbladder taken out, we're like, whatever, I don't even know what that thing does, right? Or they say, you know, you have this in your genes, so we're going to have to cut off your breast so you don't get cancer. We don't know. Nobody tells us anything. We trust the people who are supposedly in authority. Lee said something very interesting. He said, be your own health authority. Authority comes from the word author. When we allow somebody else to be our authority, we allow somebody to write our story for us. Does that sound good? Of course not, especially when it comes to something that's as personal as our health. So today I'm going to talk to you about some of the things I've discovered in the 40 years, hard to believe, the 40 years that I've been a registered pharmacist. I went to pharmacy school at CU, University of Colorado in Boulder. I became a pharmacist, and I was immediately struck by the idea that I was poisoning America. That my job was to dispense poison to people. Would it come as a surprise to you if I told you there's not a single drug on planet Earth that can heal the body? At best, we can kill bacteria. Typically, when we take drugs, we control symptoms, but we do not modify health. On the other hand, God has given us wonderful tools to take care of our health. And we don't pay attention. We don't do anything about it. We think it's silly because we live in a world where technology rules and the simple things don't seem as advanced. Do you know, the situation has changed, but for many, many years, some of you guys can remember this, and we're paying the health price for this. Breast milk was considered passé. Formula was the way. Some of you ladies remember this? Formula was the way. If you fed your baby breast milk, that was considered to be primitive. We eschew, we stay away from all of the wonderful things that God has given us on this planet to take care of our health, including herbs, including food, including oxygen and air. And we go to the technology, to the mainstream, to what we're told is good for us. And clearly it's not. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is going to fly in the face probably of what you guys have been told or what you guys know. But if you incorporate even one or two of the ideas that I talked to you about today, you will change your life, guaranteed. This is what attracted Lee to some of the things that I was talking about. And in fact, Lee is like my protege, if I can say that.
The foremost expert on the bright side philosophy.
I call it the bright side philosophy. My radio show is called The Bright Side. It's a syndicated radio show. And if you go on YouTube and look up Pharmacist Ben, you'll get a million things. And I do have a certain philosophy. And I call my radio show The Bright Side because I want it to be the good news. I'm so sick of the negative stuff. We live in this beautiful world, in this beautiful body that heals itself, that is responsive to the environment. Every time you cut yourself, a miracle happens. Sometimes people say there's no more miracles. Have you heard this? There's no more miracles. You don't have to look any closer than your body to see the miracles of your body. Your body is composed not of tissues and not of organs at its most fundamental level, but of something called a cell. And as it turns out, the cell is the nexus of health and disease. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me tell you, I'm going to start off with this idea of how we can heal the body, and I'm going to give you some practical steps. As I say, I'm a pharmacist. I'm trained in medicine, but I hate drugs. And if you're on a drug now, your number one health challenge should be to figure out how to wean yourself off of that. Whether it's a thyroid medicine, whether it's a blood pressure medicine, whether it's a heart medicine, your number one health goal should be to figure out how to wean yourself off of that drug. So, let's start off talking about how the body is composed. We look at the body, we don't really see what it's composed of, but what it's really composed of is two compartments: cells and stuff. The stuff comes out of the cells. If you want to be healthy, You have to address the cell because, as it turns out, all disease is cell disease. Diabetes is a pancreatic cell disease. Multiple sclerosis is a nerve cell disease. Alzheimer's disease is a brain cell disease. Autoimmunity is an immune cell disease. It's all about the cell. The cell is the most remarkable entity on earth. In your body, you have 100 trillion cells. And somehow all of those cells are coordinated in a way that we don't have any idea of what's happening. Somehow the cells in your head are talking down to the cells of your feet instantaneously. A cell is about 1/100th the size of a head of a pin. If I put a cell right here, you wouldn't see it, but within that cell, there are millions of working parts. Think about this. In a cell that is 1/100th the size of a head of a pin, you have millions of working parts. You have compartments in the cell that are constantly changing, moving, opening, and closing. Inside the cell, you have subcellular structures that are somehow all coordinated with each other. You have a center with something inside of it called DNA, which you've all heard of, genetics. If you took the DNA out of all the cells in your body and stretched them out end to end, it would go up to Saturn and back 6 times. This is what we're composed of. And you see, we don't know this. Our medical strategies, our medical models, our medical protocols don't talk about the cell. You know why? Because there is nothing in the doctor's magical bag of tricks that can address the cell. All we can do is irradiate the cell, poison the cell, excise the cell, or x-ray the cell. The modern medical model does not have the tools to feed the cell, to sustain the cell, to make sure the cell has what it needs to do its business, to construct the proteins, to construct the molecules. The medical bag of tricks doesn't contain anything for that cell. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Because a cell only needs 3 things. Now remember, all disease is cell disease. All illnesses start at the level of the cell. Now they're preceded by one more thing, which I'll talk about here in a second. But for now, I want you to understand why the medical model doesn't have anything for the cell, and all disease is cell disease. Can you see how important this is? If all disease is cell disease and there's nothing in the doctor's magical bag of tricks that can sustain the cell, what are we going to do? Well, as it turns out, you see, a cell is very wise. Cells have been around for 3.5 billion years. The first cell was 3.5 billion years ago, and in those 3.5 billion years, cells have figured out what they need. A cell only needs 3 things. A cell needs oxygen, a cell needs food, and a cell needs a clean place to do its work. And the only thing that can go wrong with a cell is starvation, suffocation, and toxification. That's it. So if you can control those 3 aspects and you know that all disease is cell disease, you can reverse all health challenges. Most of our health challenges in this country are based on something called chronic degenerative disease. Chronic meaning it keeps going. Degenerative means instead of regenerating, instead of building, we break down. And disease means we're out of ease. That's basically what it means. Chronic degenerative disease represents nothing more than cells not getting fed, not getting oxygen, and not having a clean place to do their work. If you leave right now and learn nothing else tonight, and you're dealing with a health challenge, that should be the most inspiring message that you could possibly hear about your body's physical well-being. All you need to do for any disease that's chronic and degenerative is figure out how to feed the cell, how to oxygenate the cell, I'll tell you how to do these here in a moment, and how to keep the cell clean so it can do its work. So, The first idea, the first big idea in this talk is that the body is made up of cells. All disease is cell disease. There's nothing in the modern medical bag of tricks that can address the cell in a healthy way, but that doesn't matter because all we need to do is figure out how to feed the cell, oxygenate the cell, and give the cell a clean place to do its work. By the way, just as an aside, the three things that go wrong with a cell: starvation, suffocation, and toxification. When a cell is toxic and starved and robbed of oxygen, it will eventually die. And when that cell dies, it explodes. And when a cell dies and explodes, it spews its contents outside of that cell. And the body has evolved a very interesting way to protect itself from that dead cell. You know, when a body dies, the same thing happens. That's why we have to bury our dead quickly. Because when a body dies and it explodes literally, fluids start to come out, enzymes start to come out. It's a very toxic situation. Dead bodies are toxic. In the old days, they would actually throw dead bodies in the well, or they'd throw dead bodies over the castle wall, because dead bodies represent danger. They represent disease. They represent toxicity. So the body has evolved a very elaborate system for protecting itself from dead cells. Dead cells that have died because they were starved, because they were toxic, and because they were suffocated. Do you know what we call that fancy mechanism for protecting, that the body uses to protect itself from all that dead tissue, all those dead fluids? We call that
apoptosis.
Not quite. Apoptosis is when the cell dies. There's a protective mechanism that protects all the good stuff, all the good tissues from cells.
Clotting.
What?
Clotting?
Close. Can you picture this? The cell dies, it spews its enzymes and its acids around. The body has to protect itself from that. It will build a wall around that cell. Close.
Inflammation?
Inflammation. Who said that? That's exactly right. It's called inflammation. Inflammation is your body's protective response to protect itself. Now, when I say inflammation, you're probably thinking of the last time you got a black eye, or you fell and hurt your knee, or you got a broken bone somewhere. You got inflammation, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something called microinflammation. Microinflammation is when an inflammatory wall made up of protein fibers and fluids surrounds that cell, surrounds that dead cell and all that fluids to keep it segregated from the rest of the body. You guys follow me? Yeah. However, now you got a problem. See, that inflammatory wall made up of protein fibers and fluid will keep food from getting to the area. It will keep oxygen from getting into the area. It will cause toxicity to build up in that area. And then what ends up happening is more cells will starve, more cells will become toxic, more cells will suffocate, and they will explode. And then you'll have more inflammation, microinflammation, to protect the body from those cells, and then oxygen won't get into that area, and food won't get into that area, and toxins will build up, and more inflammation will come. This is called the downward spiral of inflammation. And we don't notice this right away because we have 100 trillion cells. So when it happens to 1 or 2 or 100 or even 1,000 or 1,000,000, we don't notice it. But then, all of a sudden, a critical mass will be reached. A threshold will be reached where we'll start to notice. And we'll be sitting there watching TV, sitting on our couch, and we'll go, I was just sitting there minding my own business, and I got arthritis. I wasn't doing anything. I was fine. And all of a sudden, boom, fibromyalgia. Boom, Parkinson's disease. Boom, diabetes. I didn't have anything to do with it. I was just sitting there watching TV. And the arthritis angel sprinkled arthritis dust on my head. This is the kind of belief we have because we don't see what's happening as we're sitting here. Our cells are starving and suffocated and toxic, and they explode, and microinflammation is occurring. And this downward spiral continues and continues, and as we'll find out here in a moment, it starts very, very early. For many of us, it starts in utero, in the womb. For others, it starts very early in age. And the real miracle is, why does it take so long for us to get sick? How did we get 40 years? Or 35 years? Or 50 years before we get arthritis? It should happen even earlier. That's the miracle of the life force. The power of the life force that allows us to perpetuate our lives even though inside our cells are exploding. And our cells are suffocating. And our cells are toxic. And our cells are starving. Now I said all disease is cell disease. Do you guys get that? All disease is cell disease. But all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. All disease is cell disease, and cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. In Leviticus it says, the life of the body is in the blood. The blood is the sacred space. Why is the blood the sacred space? It goes everywhere. It goes to all the 100 trillion cells. And it is the blood that delivers the oxygen. It is the blood that delivers the food. It is the blood that detoxifies. The starvation and suffocation and toxification that occur at the level of the cell start off with dirty blood. If you want to do one thing to improve your health, clean your blood, I'll tell you how you do that before we leave. But then the question is, how does the blood become sludgy? Do you guys remember, some of you guys I'm sure remember Lake Cayuga in Ohio in the 70s?
That's right.
You remember? Remember catching fire?
Yes.
Right? Do you remember, the situation has changed. Some of you young folks may not remember, but us old folks remember that Indian who would cry when he would look at the river. Right? Remember, there was a big problem in the 70s with water toxicity. It's changed. They've cleaned it up, but in the 70s, it was a horrific situation, the pollution in the water. Well, guess what? That's what our blood is like. You see, the body is a fluid dynamic system. It's a hemodynamic system. The circulation of the blood is responsible for the life force because as the blood circulates, it's generating an electrical charge. That electrical charge is called a zeta potential. And as the blood is moving, it's generating electricity. When the blood becomes sludgy, the electrical energy slows down. It becomes suppressed. When the blood becomes sludgy and sticky, nutrients don't get delivered. Oxygen doesn't get delivered. Toxicity builds up. So the question becomes, how does the blood become dirty? Is that a good question? Don't you want to know that? If all disease is cell disease, and all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood, don't you want to know how to clean the blood?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
Let's make this interactive, you guys. Am I speaking Chinese here? Come on. Yes? Right? We want to know, how has the blood become dirty? That's so important. That's so important. So how does the blood become dirty? Well, let's talk about the blood here. The blood is in a compartment. It's inside. Do you know that when you eat a food, it's not technically inside your body? It doesn't get into your body until it crosses into the blood. There's two main ways things get into the blood. One way is you can inject things. And let me tell you something. You want to be very, very, very careful about what you inject into your blood. Very careful. You only want to inject things into your body if it's a life-threatening situation, because remember, the blood is a sacred space. And nature has designed the system so that the blood has these scouts. They're called immune cells. And they're constantly looking for toxicity. And they're constantly ready to jump on toxicity. And we know that when you inject things through the skin, you become very unhealthy if you do it on a regular basis. You ever see pictures of the people who inject methamphetamines? And they show you their skin, they show you what they look like before they started injecting and what they look like after. Injecting things into the bloodstream through the skin is a very dangerous practice, and a lot of people die, and a lot of people become sick from chronically injecting things through the skin. But in this room, we don't have to worry about that as much. We don't have to worry about it at all. What's the second way things get into the blood? What?
Leaky gut.
Food. Food. Yes, it's true, you can inject things through the skin, but that doesn't happen that often. The main way things get into the blood is through food because that's how the system is designed. You see, you eat a food, it goes into your mouth, you chew it, it becomes digested, pre-digested, it drops into your esophagus, it goes into your stomach, and the stomach crushes it up. The stomach crushes it up with acid and with enzymes and with muscular contractions. And then that mass, a soupy mass that has been, was food that has been processed, drops into the intestine. At that point, the magic happens. So the whole thing is pretty darn magical, but the magic really happens when the food drops from your stomach into your intestine. At that point, the food, the mass, the soupy mass of processed food is very acidic because the stomach has hydrochloric acid in it. So that soupy mass, by the way, it's called chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, chyme. This chyme drops into the intestine. At a point, there's a little sphincter between the stomach and the intestine. And something really interesting happens. Right where that food goes into the intestine, it's hit with a blast of bile from the gallbladder and a shot of enzymes from the pancreas. And the bile and the enzymes in the pancreas are alkaline. The food is acidic. What do you think happens when alkaline bile and alkaline enzymes and sodium bicarbonate hit that acidic food? Boom! Psst. If you ever want to clean roast beef sticky stuff on your pan after you make a meal, what do? You put baking soda and some apple cider vinegar. The baking soda is alkaline, the apple cider vinegar is acidic, goes psst, and it liberates all that gook on the bottom of the pan. That acid-base reaction, that fizzy reaction, liberates things off your pan and out of your food. And that bile and those pancreatic juices, when they hit that acidic food, that pre-processed food, that chyme, liberate nutrients, liberate fats, liberate what are called phytonutrients, plant nutrients, pigments, all of which play amazingly important roles for health. And then it goes into the intestine. And then at the level of the intestine, something really incredible happens. This food, the hamburger, the pizza, the bread, the noodles, whatever you had, the potatoes, the kugel, whatever it was you ate, all of that is now in its constituent form. It's vitamins, it's minerals, it's amino acids, the building blocks of protein. And in the intestine, something really incredible happens. There are little cells in the intestine, and those cells will pick up a vitamin and then flip it over to the other side of the intestine, and it goes into the blood. How cool is that? And it does it with all the minerals. It does it with the amino acids. It does it with the vitamins. It flips it over, and it goes into the blood. However, if you don't have a gallbladder, or if your pancreas isn't working as it should, or if you're not making enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach, if you don't have enough digestive enzymes, those food particles will be too big to cross over in the intestine, and guess what's going to happen to you? You will become nutritionally deficient. All from the gallbladder or the liver, which both of which make bile, the pancreas, which makes the pancreatic enzymes and the sodium bicarbonate, the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and the digestive enzymes in the stomach, you will starve. When you starve, functionally starve. You may not look like you're starving, but you're functionally starving. You're functionally malnourished. Which is why working on the digestive system is so darn important. Working on digestive juices is so darn important, but here it gets even worse. You see, when we are malnourished, our cells are malnourished. The intestine is made up of cells. When we're not getting the nutrients we need, when we're toxic, when our cells aren't getting oxygenated, the same thing will happen to the cells of the intestine. The cells of the intestine will start to swell. The cells of the intestine will start to explode. The cells of the intestine will die, and you'll get little gaps in the intestine. Somebody said earlier, leaky gut. Have you heard of this thing called leaky gut?
Oh, yeah.
Leaky gut is the end result of starvation and suffocation and toxification of your enterocytes. Your enterocytes are your intestinal cells. Entero, in biology, cyte always means cell. Like a myocyte is a muscle cell, an osteocyte is a bone cell, a cardiocyte is a heart cell, and an enterocyte is an intestinal cell. So when your cells are starving, when your cells are suffocated, when your cells are toxic, your enterocyte cells will start to explode and die, and there'll be holes that will start to develop. This condition is exacerbated by foods that trigger the immune system, the inflammatory system inside the intestine. Somebody asked me about oats. I don't remember who that was. Asked me about oats earlier. Asked me about oats. There are foods that we eat on a regular basis that create cell death at the level of the intestine. Oats being one. Seeds in general create inflammatory effects at the level of the intestine because, as we talked about earlier, friend who I was talking to, was it you? Nature doesn't want its seeds being eaten. Seeds contain anti-nutrients so that the intrepid eater who eats those seeds will pay the price. You ever hear gluten? Gluten is a classic example, although there's thousands of them, of these anti-nutrients. We eat seeds all the time. We subsist on seeds. Many of us eat seeds from the when we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night. A specific kind of seeds called grains, which are seeds. Grains are packed with these anti-nutrients, packed with pro-inflammatory substances. Now, grains are also very powerful foods, that's true, but they contain anti-nutrients that can wreak havoc on the intestine and on the enterocytes. So on top of the malnourishment from the gallbladder being removed or not functional, from the liver not making enough bile, from the stomach not producing enough hydrochloric acid and enzymes, from the pancreas not producing enough sodium bicarbonate and enzymes, you've got inflammatory effects at the level of the intestine. Then we eat the wrong foods. That exacerbates the inflammation. It creates these holes, literal holes in the intestine. And that's called leaky gut because anything can get through. Remember, the blood's on the other side of the intestine. It's supposed to come through. The nutrients are supposed to go into the blood in an orderly fashion. When you get these holes, all kinds of schmutz gets into the blood. Literally, dirt. Literally, toxins. On top of all of that, there's bacteria that live in the intestine. Those bacteria, like all bacteria, produce toxic substances. Those get into the blood. At that point, the blood's immune system kicks in. The immune system is your defense system. The blood has a defense system. Now the blood is contaminated. So the body will be as brilliant as it is. The body will protect itself by surrounding the toxins with immune cells. These surrounding these complexes, they're actually called CICs, circulating immune complexes. These circulating immune complexes in the blood will travel through the bloodstream, and something very interesting will happen. When I was a kid, I was kind of a sloppy kid. I was sort of a messy kid. And my mom would always say, clean up your room. You got to clean up your room. And I had a really cool way to clean up my room. I could clean it in like 2 minutes, no matter how messy it was. You know what I would do? Say apparently somebody else has done that. Under the bed. Under the bed. Everything goes under the bed. Spick and span in 2 minutes, no matter how messy it was. Just don't look under the bed. Well, guess what? The body does the same thing. The body will take those circulating immune complexes and deposit it. It will get it out of the blood. It'll deposit it in your thyroid. It'll deposit it in your kidney. It'll deposit in your pancreas. It'll deposit it under your skin. It'll deposit in what's called the connective tissue, which I'll tell you about here in a moment, to keep it clean. This is a pro-survival mechanism because the blood is the sacred space. You can't have schmutz in the blood. It has to be clean, so all that stuff goes into the soft tissues. Now you have these circulating immune complexes in your joints. You have them under your skin. You have them in the various glands of your body, including your thyroid gland and your pancreas gland. And guess what? The body then sees the thyroid, or it sees the pancreas, or it sees the joints, and it says, the enemy is in the joints, because it's seeing the circulating immune complexes, and guess what will happen? It will send the army against the joints. It will send the army against the thyroid. It will send the army against the connective tissue. It'll send the army against these distorted soft tissues that have become distorted by the circulating immune complexes. You know what we call that? Autoimmune disease.
Guilty by association.
Guilty by association. Okay, yes. You guys understand what I'm saying here? And then you'll go to the doctor, and you know what he'll say to you? Well, there's just no cure for your psoriasis. There is just no cure for your hypothyroidism.
True.
There is just no cure for your type 1 diabetes. There is just no cure for your multiple sclerosis. We don't know what causes autoimmune disease. If you understand this mechanism I just talked about in the last 15 minutes, you know more than your doctor.
It's genetics.
By the way, are there any medical professionals in this room? Physician? A physician?
Nurses too.
Nurses, love nurses. RN? Oh, you're an acupuncturist. Any physicians?
Yes.
Physician, MD?
Whoever telling you.
MD?
MD.
Have I said anything incorrect yet? Have I said anything, one word that doesn't make sense from a biochemical perspective? I didn't mean to attack any physicians, but you got the biochemistry is there. What I'm talking about is just biochemistry. I'm simplifying it a little bit, but this is the basic way that the body works. You understand the autoimmune mechanism? The autoimmune mechanism is the circulating immune complexes integrating with the various soft tissues of the body. The soft tissues of the body, the connective tissues, are the great dumping ground for the CICs, the circulating immune complexes. Now, if you go to a physician for what's called an autoimmune disease, what you'll end up getting is an immune suppressant, a defense suppressant. They'll tell the army to stand down. In the meantime, you're still pumping through the CICs. You're still pumping through the immune activators, and you're not helping the problem. But here's the good news. As soon as you stop the stream of toxicity from entering into the bloodstream, your symptoms will resolve. Anybody in this room have an autoimmune disease? Notice when you fast what happens to your autoimmune disease. All your symptoms will disappear depending on how long you fast for. There's a wonderful book, by the way, called The Walls Protocol, written by a gal named Dr. Terry Walls, who's a medical doctor who cured herself of multiple sclerosis by doing what? Fasting. Now, you don't have to fast totally. You can do elimination diet, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The point I want you to understand here is that the blood is the sacred space. The blood, toxicity in the blood precede cell disease. When toxicity gets into the bloodstream, you initiate immune reactions in the blood, you initiate immune reactions in the tissue, you starve cells, suffocate cells, and you keep cells from being clean, and you slow down the electrical zeta potential, the current, the electrical current that's generated like a battery by the circulation of the blood. So all disease is cell, the body's made up of cells, 100 trillion cells. We treat the stuff, we don't treat the cells because the medical model does not have any tools to treat the cell. It doesn't matter because we can do it ourselves. All cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. Blood becomes dirty for most of us through a leaky gut, through our food choices. This represents power. This represents tremendous power. For your autoimmune disease, what flavor autoimmune disease? Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Okay, that's a classic one. So that's hypothyroidism. And guess what? It is the most common of the autoimmune diseases, and it may be the most common of all diseases. And in fact, every year, when they rank the top 10 drugs, every year in the top 5 drugs, Synthroid, Cytomel, levothyroxine, thyroid hormone. And guess what? In pharmacy, we know that the hardest drugs to dose are thyroid drugs. On top of all that, you haven't done anything for your thyroid. All you've done is giving yourself the hormone. Okay, so work with foods, and thyroid is especially problematic, as we'll find out here in a moment. All right, so first big idea is all disease is cell disease. Second big idea is all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. Third big idea, the body is made up of cells and stuff. 100 trillion cells all making stuff. In science, we don't call it stuff because we're scientists. We can't say stuff. We call it tissues. So the body is made up of cells and tissues. You have 4 main tissues in the body, 4 main types of stuff in the body. You have nerve tissue, You have what's called epithelial tissue, which is like a covering tissue, also composes your eyes and your glands. And then you have the bulk of the body. The covering tissue, the epithelial tissue, your skin's a classic example of epithelial tissue, and the nervous tissue make up about 5% of the body. The remaining 95% of the body is called the flesh robot. I call it the flesh robot. Do you guys ever see the bodies exhibit? You guys know what I'm talking about, the bodies exhibit?
Yeah.
But if you go to, I don't know if they have, the local museum is, but there are various museums where they'll show you bodies without the skin, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, the bodies exhibit? That's what we look like underneath our skin. You know, if you could see our flesh robot, you couldn't tell if you were Asian or black or Jewish or French or American. We all look the same. Our flesh robot looks the same, and the flesh robot is made up of two types of tissue. One is called muscle tissue, makes about 50% of the body, and the rest is called connective tissue. And as an acupuncturist, you know about the connective tissue because the connective tissue is what obviously connects everything, but the connective tissue does more than connect everything. The connective tissue conducts currents. The connective tissue is the intelligence of the body. Like the brain is the intelligence in our head, the connective tissue is our intelligence that connects, that runs from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet, that connects everything and communicates to all of the cells of the body. If you ever get a massage therapists know that when they're massaging a patient, sometimes the patient will start to cry. Because what happens is memories are stored in the connective tissue. We all store memories in the connective tissue, and this is one of the reasons why as we age, our connective tissue starts to shrivel. In fact, you may know this, I don't know if you know this or not, I'm in the skin business, that's where I make most of my living. Connective tissue deterioration accounts for tremendous distress as we get older. In fact, it would not be a leap to say that all of the things we hate about aging are related to deteriorating connective tissue. The osteoporosis, the wrinkles, the hernias, the prolapses, all of these are signs that our connective tissue is deteriorating. Inside our bodies, all of our organs are held in place like fruit in a jello mold. The jello mold in the body that holds the heart and holds the stomach and holds the intestines, that jello mold is connective tissue. As we age, things start to pop out. Organs start to drop. When an organ drops, you guys ever hear the condition called a prolapse? Right? That's when parts of your body, your uterus, your breasts, your bladder, they just drop because the connective tissue deteriorates. A prolapsed uterus is your pineapple dropping. Your jello mold is deteriorating. By the way, what is jello? Does anybody know what jello is? What is gelatin? Connective tissue. Exactly. Jello is connective tissue. Cow connective tissue usually, but it's connective tissue. So building the connective tissue is the sine qua non of anti-aging. It's the very essence of anti-aging, whether you're talking about wrinkles or whether you're talking about ruptures or whether you're talking about hernias or whether you're talking about heart disease. Do you know that your blood vessels are made of connective tissue? And as the connective tissue deteriorates, you get little nicks and cuts in the blood vessels. Do you know what nature will use to patch up those nicks and cuts in the blood vessels? Cholesterol. And your doctor will say, your cholesterol is too high. We better shut that down. We have a special drug that will do that. It's called a statin drug. We'll just shut down that cholesterol production. Do you know that the single most important molecule, most multifunctional molecule, most pro-vigor molecule in your body, the molecule in your body that makes you not a vegetable, that makes the animal not a plant, is cholesterol. And if you wanted to suppress the health of a culture, you could do no better than to tell that culture or to give something to that culture that would suppress its cholesterol production. Cholesterol is your pro-life molecule. It's turned into all of the molecules of life. It's turned into the outside part of all the cells in your body. Cholesterol is a precursor. It actually is not even a precursor. It's a form of, or say bile is a form of cholesterol. Vitamin D is a form of cholesterol. Testosterone is a form of cholesterol. Estrogen is a form of cholesterol. Not only is cholesterol important for the structure of the body, it's important for the chemistry of the body. And it's especially important for the chemistry of youth, for the chemistry of fertility, for the chemistry of energy, for the chemistry of movement, for the chemistry of brain health and thinking. Plants don't make cholesterol. Only animals make cholesterol because cholesterol is associated with action, with movement, with responsiveness to life, with protection from life. So your blood vessels start to deteriorate because your connective tissue is deteriorating, or blood vessels start to degrade because your connective tissue is deteriorating. Cholesterol comes to the rescue to patch it up. If you're worried about your cholesterol, you should be worried about your connective tissue. Do you know bodybuilders have higher cholesterol than average folks? Do you know when you're recovering from surgery, your cholesterol levels go up? When you're under duress, you make more cholesterol because cholesterol is responsible for making stress hormone? And by the way, HDL and LDL are not cholesterol. They carry cholesterol. And, as an aside, if you want your cholesterol to be more functional, if you want your cholesterol to work better, get out in the sun. Because the sun will make your cholesterol more water soluble so it can flow through the blood more efficiently. Did you know that's sulfation of cholesterol via the sun? Sun, by the way, is amazing for health. And our collective heliophobia does not serve us well. So the four tissues in the body, the nervous tissue, the epithelial tissue, the muscle tissue, and the connective tissue, building the connective tissue is the very essence of anti-aging. There is one nutrient without which you cannot make connective tissue.
Collagen.
No. Collagen is connective tissue.
Vitamin C.
Let me tell my story
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Don't be stealing my thunder, young lady.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. You cannot make connective tissue without vitamin C. There's a disease that used to happen many years ago that fortunately doesn't happen anymore. Right? We don't have scurvy anymore. Scurvy is when people's teeth would fall out of their gums, when their blood vessels would explode in their body, they'd hemorrhage to death, their bones would become weak, their skin would develop sores and wounds that wouldn't heal. You died by hemorrhaging to death from scurvy, and thank God we don't have scurvy anymore, right? Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Amen.
Right? Wrong! We do have scurvy. We have subclinical scurvy. Subclinical means it's not bad enough for you to go to the hospital. It's not bad enough for you to go to the doctor. It's not bad enough for you to worry about your demise. But it's bad enough that your body is deteriorating. It's called subclinical scurvy. The technical name for subclinical scurvy is aging. Everything about aging is deterioration of connective tissue. Deterioration of connective tissue is the main symptom of scurvy. It's what causes scurvy. Scurvy was cured when it was discovered that when people would eat some lemons and some limes, they wouldn't get scurvy anymore. And then this was in the 1600s, a guy named, a Dr. Admiral in the British Navy named James Lind realized that if he gave his sailors lemons and limes, they wouldn't get scurvy. To this day, we call British sailors limeys. Then this brilliant, probably the most brilliant scientist in my opinion, my scientific hero, a guy named Albert St. Georgi, discovered the actual molecule that was in the lemons and in the limes that was curing the scurvy. And he called it without scurvy, and it was an acid. So he called it without scurvy acid. Ascorbic acid, exactly. Ascorbic acid is your anti-scurvy vitamin. And it's your anti-aging vitamin. And if you guys aren't using vitamin C in high doses on a regular basis, you are missing the boat on anti-aging. Vitamin C, the problem with vitamin C and why we have such a problem with subclinical scurvy is because we were all dosing ourselves on vitamin C based on something called the RDA. You ever all hear the RDA? Don't say anything, Lee. What does the RDA stand for? No, it stands for the Ridiculous Deficiency Allowance. Because it fools us, it tricks us into thinking that all we need is 60 milligrams of vitamin C. And you do need 60 milligrams of vitamin C maybe to stop from having scurvy, but you need way more to have a good life. You need way more to build the connective tissue. You need way more to prevent hernias and prolapses. You need way more to support your immune system. Do you know animals, dogs, cats, squirrels, birds, rodents, whatever, gorillas, monkeys, they all make vitamin C. They make their own vitamin C. The only human beings and the gorillas and the fruit bat, and I think a form of some kind of hamster doesn't make vitamin C. When a billy goat is under stress, it will make grams of vitamin C. Yet the RDA for vitamin C is 60 milligrams. A pinch of it. But a billy goat, when it's under stress, will make grams of it. 5 grams, 10 grams of it. You can inject 50 grams right into your bloodstream of vitamin C. In the world of vitamins, there's the vitamins and there's vitamin C. Just like in baseball or hockey, you've got baseball players, you got Babe Ruth. You got hockey players, you got Wayne Gretzky. You got vitamins and you got vitamin C. It's that incredible. And you're not going to get anywhere near enough from an orange, which has about 30 milligrams in it. By the way, anybody know what food has the most vitamin C in it?
Green leafy greens.
No, anybody?
Avocado.
Red peppers. Also, kiwis are a good source of vitamin C. Papayas are a good source of vitamin C. There's 10 times as much vitamin C in a kiwi as there are, gram for gram, as there are in orange, by the way. And orange juice, forget that, unless it's freshly squeezed, because the vitamin C disappears very quickly. All right, so the third big idea is the connective tissue. Building the connective tissue, the sine qua non of anti-aging. Vitamin C is the key player in building connective tissue. And by the way, the bones are connective tissue. So for you ladies who are using calcium for your bones and using estrogen for your bones and taking Boniva and Fosamax for your bones and not taking vitamin C, you are completely missing the boat on bone building. When was the last time your doctor told you to take more vitamin C for your bones? Never. Exactly. My people perish for lack of knowledge. The fourth big idea. The body is built into two systems. When we perceive the world through our eyes, through our hands, through our touch, through our nose, through our ears, we call those, what do we call those? The 5 senses. The 5 senses are satellites. They're constantly searching the environment for signals so that the organism, us, will know what to do. These senses are attached to a part of our body called the nervous system. The nervous system is what transduces the outside world into the inside. The nervous system converts the outside world into understanding, into a form that the body can understand. But you see, when you see something, or you smell something, or you're touched, or you hear something, what did I miss? Smell. Did I say smell?
Taste.
Taste, right. You taste something. Those signals go into the nervous system, but they get channeled into one of 2 parts of the nervous system. You see, we have 2 nervous systems. We have one nervous system that is associated with peace, that's associated with love, that's associated with healing, that's associated with growth and repair, that's associated with fertility, that's associated with creativity and imagination. And we have another nervous system that's associated with fear, that's associated with survival, that's associated with running, that's associated with fighting, that's associated with remaining immobile. They call that the fight, freeze, and flee response. This system that's associated with love, with peace, with contentment, with healing is called the parasympathetic nervous system. This nervous system that's associated with getting the heck out of Dodge, if a lion is chasing you, This nervous system that shuts down your digestive system, because you're not supposed to eat when you're running from a lion. This nervous system that's associated with bowel problem, constipation, because you're not supposed to, you know what, when you're running from a lion. This nervous system that's associated with infertility, because your body doesn't want to make a baby when it's running from a lion. That's called your sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your fear nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, your love nervous system, and this dichotomy or these parallel sensations of love and fear are the primal sensations of any organism. All organisms, humans included, from a human to a bacteria to a cell to anything in between, is constantly surveying its environment to see whether it should be parasympathetic or sympathetic. Does this make sense? You guys understand this is very, very important because you see, the home of all disease is here. The adversary. This is the adversary. This is the dark force. Now, I don't want to, it's not like the sympathetic nervous system isn't our friend because it helps us get out of a jam. But we spend our lives in jams. You see, this is the sympathetic, the parasympathetic nervous system is the nervous system of ease. The sympathetic nervous system is the nervous system of dis-ease. Exactly. And everything we hate about our health lives here. The high blood pressure, the immune diseases, the dementias, the deterioration of tissues, the failure to grow and repair, the heart disease, everything that kills us is here. It's in the fear nervous system. The love nervous system heals. Do you see how this primal dichotomy is everywhere you look? We're either in love or we're in fear. This is where the psychological aspects become important. When we spend our lives in fear, we spend our lives in sympathetic overdrive. Our blood pressure goes up. We don't grow, we don't repair. Our body shrivels. We hate life, we get depressed, we're obese, we can't make babies, we can't go to the bathroom. All of it's here in the sympathetic nervous system. Anything you could do to activate the parasympathetic nervous system will restore you back to health. There's not a drug on planet Earth that can do that. There's not a surgical procedure on planet Earth that can do that. There's not an X-ray, there's not a radiation that can do that. But we can do it. An hour ago, when you were singing and dancing, guess what you were doing? Activating the parasympathetic nervous system. When you're loving God, guess what you're doing? You're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. When you're in high emotions, you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. When you're depressed, when you're sad, when you're anxious, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system. This is where being your own health authority becomes so important. Do not marginalize the time we spend in fear as related to your health. We had a big immune problem in this country a couple of years ago, or still going on. You guys all know what I'm talking about. Yeah. There was this invading infectious agent. So you would think that people would activate their parasympathetic nervous system because that's where the immune system becomes strong and vital. No, we were in fear. Every day in fear. What do you think that does? It suppresses. It shuts down the immune system. It makes us weaker. It makes us more susceptible. My people perish for lack of knowledge. It's as simple as getting into the parasympathetic mode of being. You become parasympathetic when you're grateful. You become parasympathetic when you care for somebody else. You become parasympathetic when you breathe correctly. How many of you guys have problems sleeping at night? I'm sure at least 90% of you do, because 90% of Americans do. You ever see how many mattress commercials there are and pillow commercials there are? And it's like nobody can sleep. Why? Because when you're in sympathetic overdrive, your body's not going to let you sleep because a lion's about to eat you. To the sympathetic nervous system, if you want to fall asleep quickly, come up with a list of 10 things you're grateful for. And run down the list, and then do it again. Run down the list, do it again. And run down the list a third time, and the next thing you know, it'll be morning. Because you will have fallen asleep. Because when you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, you relax the body. Everything relaxes. The mind relaxes. The muscles relax, the connective tissue relaxes, everything relaxes. You can do it right now. Think about something you hate right now and you'll notice you clench. You feel your fingers clenching, tightening. We learn to do this at a very young age. When we're traumatized at a very young age, our body contracts. We contract when we're in fear. And when we contract, cells don't get fed, they don't get oxygenated, they don't get detoxified because everything is closing up. Opening occurs as you say, okay. It's like if you had a surprise, you have a surprise party, someone jumps out of the closet and goes, surprise, you go, oh, and then you see it's a big joke, you go, oh. Do you know just going, oh, will activate the parasympathetic nervous system? Just sighing will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. One of the best ways to activate the parasympathetic nervous system for anybody who has high blood pressure. High blood pressure is a classic sign of a sympathetic response. That's why when we get scared, our blood pressure goes up. You want to draw, how many guys are on an antihypertensive? Anybody on antihypertensive drugs? And by the way, antihypertensive drugs are among the most toxic drugs of all. The beta blockers and the calcium channel blockers. Beta blocker, do you know? What drug are you on? Lisinopril, okay. That's not quite as bad as some of the others, but okay. Any other antihypertensives? I'm going to tell you how you can lower your blood pressure with no drugs in 10 minutes. You have a blood pressure cuff? Do you have a cuff? So take your blood pressure with a blood pressure cuff, see what it is. Then go sit in a warm bath. Just sit in that warm bath. And then take your blood pressure again. I guarantee you it will drop like a stone because warm water activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Why does warm water activate the parasympathetic nervous system? Well, when was the last time, for many of us, we were perfectly safe? The womb. The womb. The womb tells the body, or the bath tells the body it's in the womb. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Even splashing warm water on your face will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Certainly bath. Have you ever gone into a bath and then when you get up you feel a little woozy? Yeah. Feel a little dizzy? That's because your blood vessels are opening up. Your blood pressure is dropping. If we really cared about health in this country, we wouldn't have Obamacare and national health insurance. We'd have national hot tub insurance, where every American gets a hot tub in their backyard. Because when you sit in a hot tub, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. How simple is that? Do you see the power that we have at our disposal with hot water, with dietary changes, with gratitude, with building the connective tissue? These aren't chapters, but the fifth big idea, you're gonna love this, doctor might love this. I call it YDDM. Your diagnosis doesn't matter. We've got 10,000 different diseases in this country, according to the World Health Organization. 10,000 different diseases. How can you have 10,000 different diseases in the body? How could there be 10,000 separate ways that the body can break down? There isn't. There's only one disease. I call it MBFA disease. My body is falling apart disease. That's the only disease there is. Our body is falling apart. The way you take care of any disease is to rebuild the body. You rebuild the body starting with the cell, moving on to the blood, moving on to the connective tissue, working with the parasympathetic nervous system, coming out of disease and going back into ease. That's how you build the body. It doesn't matter what you call the name of the disease. Because underneath all diseases are 3 points of bodily breakdown. No matter what the disease is, these 3 points of bodily breakdown are underneath all of them. And the reason why our medical model doesn't serve us is because we're trying to treat the leaves without treating the roots. The 3 points of bodily breakdown represent the roots. All of our symptoms and our 10,000 diseases are the leaves. You can't treat the leaves without treating the roots. The 3 points of bodily breakdown I call the triangle of disease. The triangle of disease are the only 3 parts of the body you need to address to deal with any health challenge. Whether it's cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disease, neurological issues, Parkinson's disease, dementia, you have to approach these 3 points of bodily breakdown that underlie everything. I saw this from just working with thousands of people. I saw it no matter what disease they had, they had these 3 points of bodily breakdown. These 3 points of bodily breakdown break down sequentially. The first point of bodily breakdown occurs, the second point occurs, the third point occurs, and then it goes back around again, and this is how most of us live our lives from cradle to grave. The triangle of disease, the 3 points of bodily breakdown, they start off with, no surprise, the digestive system. The center of the body. This is where everything begins, in the center of the body. Just like a farmer knows that if they want to have nice crops, they got to work on the soil. They work on the crops, they work on the soil. And in fact, they work on a part of the soil that is incredibly valuable, the bacteria in the soil. In the body, the soil is in the intestine. The bacteria are called probiotics, or the microbiome. What's supposed to happen is when we're born, or even in the womb, our intestine is supposed to be forming in the womb, and when we come out of the womb, the baby is bathed with a coating of bacteria. That coating of bacteria go into the baby's mouth and going down the baby's esophagus and into the baby's intestine, and from that point forward, those bacteria become that baby's health angels. Those bacteria make vitamins. Those bacteria detoxify. Those bacteria process foods. Those bacteria will actually tell your brain what kind of foods you're supposed to eat, if they're the right bacteria. Those bacteria will affect your mood. Those bacteria will affect your immune system. The problem is we have 30% of babies, and many in this room, likely born cesarean. If you're born cesarean, that doesn't happen. Then what's supposed to happen is the baby is supposed to have those bacteria proliferate and the intestinal lining proliferate by the most powerful food on the planet, which is breast milk. And we know that 30% of babies aren't breastfed. And of those babies who are breastfed, many of them aren't breastfed long enough, or many of them aren't breastfed from moms who are nutritionally competent themselves. So that baby is now 2 weeks old and he's already compromised at the level of the digestive system. When that happens, the baby has problems with energy. He doesn't absorb nutrients as well. We say that baby is colicky. Colic comes from the word colon. Colicky babies have colon issues. And when that baby is colicky because he's not getting enough energy, we have come up with a wonderful way to address that problem. We call it apple juice, or pear juice, or some kind of sugar, and that takes care of the baby's energy needs quickly. But the problem there is the body doesn't like to have a lot of sugar. Am I getting the heave-ho here? 5 minutes. I'm winding down. How you guys doing, by the way? Good information, Doc? Good information? All right. So the baby is having problems with energy. He gets sugar. His blood sugar goes up. The body has evolved a system for pulling the sugar out of the blood. That's called insulin. The blood sugar goes down again. Now the baby's colicky. Guess what happens? He gets more apple juice. He gets more pear juice. The insulin goes up to pull that sugar out. The baby's colicky again. I call that the high blood sugar, low blood sugar roller coaster. Up and down and up and down and up and down. By the time that baby is 8, 9, 10 years old, he's got blood sugar problems. They call that pre-diabetes. Today we have a problem with juvenile diabetes. I'm almost done. Okay. One more minute here.
So if you people want Ben to come back another time, we certainly would
Thank you.
like that.
Thank you. I want to give you some quick solutions here. The third point on the bodily, when the blood sugar goes up and down, the thyroid starts to become, the adrenal glands start to kick in, and the thyroid starts to become dysfunctional, and that's one of the main causes of hypothyroidism. The problem is the thyroid regulates the digestive tract, and the whole thing starts all over again, and you get this downward spiral of disease that underlies all disease. No matter what your health challenge is, if you address those 3 points, your symptoms will resolve. To the extent you address the digestive system, the blood sugar system, and the adrenal thyroid complex, all 100% of chronic degenerative disease symptoms will begin to subside. Do you guys see how powerful we are? Can you see how much power we have that nobody's telling us about? We don't need drugs. We don't need doctors. We don't need the medical strategies with the exceptions of emergencies. And by the way, praise God for the medical model when it comes to what we call heroic medicine. And that's where medicine excels. Where it doesn't excel is in lifestyle, in diseases that are based in lifestyle. And that's where 80% of our disease, that's where 80% of our health challenges are, in what are called chronic degenerative diseases. The next time I come, I'm going to tell you about the fourfold square of health. I will tell you about what I call the 8 chapters of good nutrition. If you want to, if you like what I just talked about, I have zillions of YouTubes. If you just Google Pharmacist Ben in YouTube, I also have a radio show that I do weekends, twice a week, called The Bright Side. And if you have questions, I will hang out to answer your questions. I hope that was educational and informative. I had a good time. Thank you for putting that on. Thank you, Rabbi Asher, wherever you are. Thank you, everybody. And if you have individual questions, I'll hang out as long as you need. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oxygen. Yes, I didn't get to talk about oxygen. Here. You gotta have you come back. Oxygen is really important. Breathing, slow, deep breathing. Yes, sir. God bless you. Thank you. Just very inspiring. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, next time. Thank you. God bless you. What's that?
It's my biology.
Full dinner being served downstairs.
Cafe. Oxalates are waste product. They're on cellular waste product. Oxalates in food are not the big deal. It's the metabolism. So the main you're not exactly producing too much yourself. It's a waste product. Oxalates in food, that's one thing. Most of the oxalates are waste product.
So ascorbic acid is yeah, amazing. Maybe that's where it comes from.
That's why if we don't sleep,
you can actually have them inject.
you're worried about this.
Vitamin C is, it's a big movement. I don't know what it's where do you get that? Now, if you do too much ascorbic acid, once you get bloated or diarrhea, you got to be smaller doses at a time, but in a daily dose, you want 3, 4, 5 grams a day.
If you want to eat rosacea, what do you
Rosacea, I didn't get to talk about skin. Rosacea, you want to think of it as a digestive problem. And you know, what's your name? Nira, you know that when you eat certain foods, it's very obvious.
Yes.
Yes, obvious. So if rosacea is red. The skin is not the problem. The blood is the problem. It's dirty blood. So you got to work with the foods. And also, as it turns out, people who have rosacea have a certain bacteria in their stomach called H. pylori. H. pylori. H. pylori is killed by stomach acid. So as long as you're making stomach acid, you won't have a problem with H. pylori. But many people don't make enough stomach acid. And that's that makes that's one of the worst things. 500,000 gallbladders should take it out. It's very important. I know. Without a gallbladder, you need a gallbladder in a bottle. Digestive enzymes, lecithin, something called bile salts. Bile salts. All of these will act kind of like bile. See, bile is made in the liver. And then it's transferred to the gallbladder. And the gallbladder is like a big bag of bile, and then it's the squirt that I was telling you about. Without a gallbladder, now you got a triple. That means you're not absorbing vitamin A. That means you're not absorbing your fat soluble, your essential fatty acids. You're not absorbing your vitamin D, E, and K. You're not absorbing your phytonutrients that protect you from the sun or act as adaptogens. It puts you, it's like being a heavyweight fighter with one hand tied behind your back. So you have to really be careful about obviously fatty nutrients and supplements. Small portions of fatty foods. We have to go.
Yeah, absolutely. After school.
Did you
You're still pushing around.
Okay,
good. Yeah. We both want to thank you for inviting us. Oh, yeah, sure.
Lee, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming downstairs, right?
Downstairs,
Yes. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, there's a Lee Wolf, who is the speaker for this conference. He's a big deal. He's like the Dalai Lama of the Chabad philosophy. It's, I don't know how to explain it. He's like a meditation guy. If you guys have time and interest, and there's food also, there's ice cream. You guys are welcome to join. Under my guests, I have like, I'm gonna bring like 5 to 10 people.
So necrosis.
By all means, if you want to check it out, I'll see you.
It's proceeded.
But if not, then I'll definitely, we should make time to run events in Kushner sometime, so I'd love to just come back and.
Necrosis just means your tissues.
Yeah, like I said, obviously you're a little busy tonight, organizing everything.
Yeah. It was good. It was like, they didn't want to have a speaker and they weren't sure because, and I said, I think people are willing to go see a movie for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. They're willing to listen to something that affects their health and life, It's like, it's so backwards. You're right. And he does all this for free. I mean, I've been friends with him since 2014, I guess. First time I met him in person, actually, since he lives in Colorado. But he's done like Zoom things for me just a couple years ago, and he actually did a podcast with the speaker downstairs and him because there's so much overlap, which is why I insisted he come speaker the night before him. That I had to just had to make them connect. And as it happened, Little Wolf downstairs coming from the Hasidic background, he's coming from the biochemical background. Ben would say something that was like, Ben, perhaps I can rephrase, say exactly what you're saying, but using a slight variation on the imagery based on a teaching by our Hasidic master. And it was just back and forth, just like nodding their hats to each other. It was like, but there was one disagreement, which was on pharmaceuticals when it comes to like psychotropic drugs for depression and things like that. And
it's one size fits most.
and they resolved it. The way they resolved it was like beautifully. I can say, actually, I'll send you a link to that in case you ever have any time or interest to listen to it. It's very interesting.
Okay. So, thank you again.
Thank you. Yeah. Good luck. Good week. Yeah, and definitely, put me upstairs if you guys have any time or interest.
Okay, well, it's up to her, but.
Oh, of course, the boss.
Yep.
You like it?
Yeah, it's great. I had to get a product.
Yeah, well, he promotes it. It's not his product.
I hadn't heard that.
He has a lot of products.
He was a lawyer.
Then I have to run with this guy.
I know.
I heard you were talking to us about oxygen.
I didn't get a chance to finish.
Oh, so there's this thing I was looking to get, the aeroplane.
This is all that's in the box. Extension cords. What do you need? What are you looking for?
Well, this longest one.
I have 2 that are connected here that are pretty long.
What happened to the controller for the microphone? What was mine?
Oh, come on, well, I'm not really. I didn't know the key of the song so much. Right, yeah. I want to see if I can teach you something. Because I learned it just by myself in a room with the desire and the melody in my head. And I think I can teach somebody, but they have to have a desire. That's what they find someone who's not even. Yeah. It's just a series of micro trial and errors until you get when you hear this, you heard it there. I know. I've heard you. Yeah, you should play with me members. Next holiday, that you come to do this. The wire mic? You don't want to use the wire mic? Oh, I see.
Now, it's supposed to be a plug.
Yeah, it's over here.
Oh, it's over here.
I have a plug for it. Don't worry. It's an apple pop. Apple pop.
And this is
All right, what else do you need? Then plug on. Find the plug. What else do you need?
the power cable for the microphone.
I hope you don't take this as a sign of disrespect. I just bring Ben and try to do another. Right. Just because you guys are complimentary and the Palestinians also. 2 on 1 off. I just wanted to.
Five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If it's loud, just a fraction down. Testing. Good. No. Testing. Okay.
It's art, not science. Actually, how about you mention your mindfulness program?
Folks, good evening. Are we almost ready to start here? First of all, I just wanted to see a show of hands. There was a lot of interest in Ben Fuchs's, rant to continue a little bit longer. Is anybody interested in, not tonight, obviously, but he's going to be here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock putting on fill-in. I mean, I don't know, if there's enough of an interest, we might be able to continue it, but, come to me privately and see if that's something we can work out.
How about a shot of tone?
A shot of tone, yeah, we'll see. Or a seminar. I just wanted to point to Rabbi Wolf's, some of his work. I mean, I'm sure you'll know his book, Practical Kabbalah, but he also has a program. He's very big on methodologies, which, of course, if you're going to do anything, you have to follow a methodology that's proven, unless you're the pioneer that's making it, in which case you have to prove it yourself. But even that's probably based on something that you're trying to improve or create. So, I don't wonder how long that's been going for. Thank you, my good friends and family, for letting me know about that. So what I wanted to say was, Rabbi Wolf has, among his work is a program, a methodology for achieving a meditative practice, but this one is very structured. It's comprised of 3 4-week long steps. And all of them are to bring you to be some kind of master over your emotional self. And so far, just because of the nature of who I am, I haven't been able to stick to the whole thing. But if there's a communal interest, I was thinking we could start a WhatsApp group and we can all start it on one day and kind of motivate each other. If there's an interest in that, you can contact me in my phone number or my email. It's my first and last name, number 1@gmail.com, and we can try and work that out. But I want to let you know about this program. It's called Kavanah Mindfulness. It's available for free on YouTube, as all media is becoming available. It used to be $1.29 per song, now songs are free. And as such, you could access it at any point. There's no restrictions, and there's a PDF that comes with it that I can send to you, or Rabbi Wolf can tell you how to get access to it, which tells you the program. The program begins with a four-week series of meditations. The first week is 30 minutes twice a day, and it's called inner stillness, which is your peaks. Refers to it as leveling the playing field, which is we're so bombarded by stressors and stimulants and stimulation that it seems like we're up against an unfair advantage of the opposition. So this particular meditation, and it works, trust me, it works, attempts to create a sense of calm and repose from within, and it's absolutely effective, better than any pill. That's what I've heard. I mean, I don't know so much about those, but I've heard that it's better than any pill. And it starts, you do 30 minutes twice a day for the first week. The second week, you accomplish what you accomplished the first week in 5 minutes. And I kid you not, it's 100% effective. And then the third week, you accomplish that same amount in 10 seconds. And then you do the same thing in the next month, where you start with, it's called Scanning the Horizon, where you're able to do a panoramic view of, let's say, a room or situation, and you're able to identify I think tens, if not hundreds, of things that we've seen in that. And it sounds kind of ridiculous and something that's not possible, but the problem is we don't train in these areas, and that's why it seems so ridiculous. And the third week is called Birthing Wisdom, where you would somehow develop the ability with the first two skills to size up any situation you're in and come up with the most responsible and, wisdom-based response to it. So that's just something that I think shouldn't go unnoticed because it's available, and if you're looking for a methodology to begin a practice of meditation, this one is very helpful, and it's 100% kosher. It has a stamp of approval, as it's made by Rabbi Wolf. Without further ado, Rabbi Herson. No, Rabbi Herson's going to do Havdalah.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, before the food is delicious. What's that? No guitar. I'm limited. My Havdalah doesn't have a guitar, but it does have a cup of wine. Only for Havdalah purposes, not others. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, some of you already heard of Havdalah, some did not. This is a mitzvah, not only a divine commandment that's included in the 10 Commandments, which are very popular, but not necessarily well known. But in the fourth of the 10 Commandments is included the following. The Shabbos is given to us to be able to provide the soul, to charge the soul with electricity, with a vibrancy that enables it to do its work during the following week. A lot of times you'll see people say, we work towards Shabbos, and that's the culmination of the previous week, and then we go back to the rat race. That's not the concept. The totality of creation is the 6 days of the week, to bring godliness down to every nook and cranny. It's the Shabbos that powers the 6 days that follow. So with that perspective, we can understand that on Shabbos, Friday night,